Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Game Junk Reviews. This time focusing on Metroid Dread. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And undoubtedly, I would say the most anticipated game of this year that's actually being released for all of us. It's been a while since we all finished a game, I think, and got to review it. So,
especially within the first week.
Yeah, like this is... Wow, yeah, like I was done in 4 days. We love short games, so no complaints on that front. But we're going to be getting into what we liked, what we loved, what we hated about Metroid Dread. And I gave some initial impressions last week, and I was pretty passionate about them, I'd say. And Huck and Sean hadn't spent that much time in the game yet, and probably didn't get to the stuff that was driving me crazy to begin. But let's start with, I don't know, Huck, you're the newest here. You have given no impressions yet. You crushed this thing this weekend. What are your thoughts? And I guess I'll say story stuff we might talk about at the end. I don't think story is that important to talk about. I hate story in games anyway. But it's very sparse, kind of what I like about Metroid. If anything, maybe too much story in this, but if I don't even understand it. If we want to talk about story, that will be at the end. But we will spoil gameplay elements, like powers you get, clunky, terrible mechanics that, are so dated and have no quality of life improvements that every other game has. I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff. So if you don't want anything spoiled at all, like powers you get late in the game, wait, play the game, and then come listen. No, I'm setting this up a little poorly because I actually like the game more than I did last time, but we'll get into why. But first, Andrew, your thoughts on Metroid Dread.
And you just finished this like 10 minutes ago, right?
I did. I literally am coming in super fresh. I literally was watching the credits roll as I was logging into Zoom. And I thought it was pretty okay. Let's say that. I wouldn't say it's a great Metroid game. I think they fail at the core pillar of Metroid, which is what Frank mentioned last time, the exploration. And really, what I like about Metroidvania games or Metroid games or whatever Frank wants to call them this week, I think what they do well is exploration without you feeling lost. And they corner you just enough where, okay, like this is not too far away, and when I get the power, I'll be able to use it, and you remember it. Whereas this game, I find like there's quite a few times where I get a new power, I use that power to get out of the room. Okay, that's all good. And then it's just like, have at her. Like go wherever you want. And sometimes they gate you okay, but other times I'm like, do I go back around the other way? Do I go this way? And like, it's just not obvious. And you like go and talk to your computer pal and they're like, good job getting that thing. Keep heading to the surface. Meanwhile, I just went near the surface and came all the way back down to the bottom. I don't really get that part of it.
While we're talking about the core pillar, I've been thinking about this a bit too. And I agree it's exploration, but a better word or a substitutable word might be discovery. Because it's not just about exploration, but like discovery within a room, like finding a secret, like discovering how to get it. They kind of go hand in hand, but I think discovery might be a bit more specific and more accurate description for Metroid, because I think discovery is implicit in exploration.
I like that, and it is actually one of the reasons why I dislike this game more than Frank, at least. I don't know about Sean yet, but I hate how when you shoot a wall that has something hidden in it, it does not reveal what it is. Now, I'm pretty sure in most other Metroids, you shoot the wall with any weapon and it would reveal what the thing was you needed. Is that wrong?
I don't remember, but it does let you, it says specifically in Metroid Dread, you can reveal blocks and walls, but you have to shoot them with missiles, not with your regular gun.
Okay,
Yeah.
did
So
say
you
that.
can test out wall areas, but it has to be with a missile. You can't just fire. And I think that, I don't know about the missile aspect, but I don't remember if just shooting your standard beam or gun at the ground would like reveal things in other Metroid.
It doesn't, but I feel like bombs sometimes did as well.
Yeah, bombs were kind of a catch-all, so you could carpet bomb floors and see what's going on. And I get what Andrew's talking about, and it's what Sean and I talked about last week. I'm sure we've all encountered, most of the people I talk to who play this game, first of all, talk about how linear it is compared to other Metroids. And we even said last week, I think a lot of Metroids might be linear in the way that it blocks you within sections to figure things out so you don't get completely lost. But it doesn't feel like I'm not exploring for whatever reason, like the size or the map. This one just feels like I'm getting stuck in 2-room cycles, figuring out, like, it's just an exercise in gating, basically, is what the game comes down to. There's so many different types of gates. The thermal channeling stuff and rerouting power is like a weird gating mechanic that, this is what I said to Sean. I can't remember if I said this on the show last week. It's got good level design, but not for the player. It's like the designers got off on their own ability to make gates and figure out how to trap the player. I could see someone who designs game thinking, wow, this is a really creative way that we like kind of kept the player in a segment, and we're great level designers. But that, to me, that does not translate to the player at all. It's like this exercise in level design that is strictly for the developers, not for the player. And I guess I would make the analogy of it being like what single take shots are in movies, like technically impressive, great for filmmakers and people who understand filmmaking. But I don't know, unless what's inside the shot or the take is interesting, I don't know if it translates to everyone who watches a movie. And that's how I feel about the design in this game.
I did kind of have a similar feeling to that, like when I was getting close to the end of the game, just in the sense that, like, you start, like, obviously the map opens up and you're able to go almost everywhere. And that's fun and that's freeing. But also, you just start realizing, like, when you look at the map and how many different, and we'll probably talk more about the map in detail in a bit, but like how many different types of gates they have and how complicated that must have been to lay out and figure all this stuff out. So like on that level, I was like, yeah, that's kind of impressive, but it doesn't matter because it wasn't fun, that part of it. So
I mean, honestly, when you break it down, it's not that impressive. You just, you map out all the powers in the game. You have gates that are designed for those things, and you say, we want to keep a player in here, just have these gates. It's just, compared to other Metroids, there's like double or triple the amount of gates. And it's just like, once you figure out how to do it once, it's not that hard to do it in other ways, especially when you're separating things off to different worlds. It's just a way of presenting a more limited view of the planet to the player, which is not fun or in the spirit of Metroid. And I guess getting back to the map, this all kind of ties in. I really disliked the map. I thought I prefer the old, simple blue, like squares and white lines. I found it, at least then you could kind of see where, if it was a solid white line versus like a cutoff blue line, you could see where you've been and where you haven't been. This one is just overcomplicated, finding doors that are locked. And there's a lot of one-way doors in this game too, that are frustrating, and like being able to discern those from other doors on the map. I'm sure there's people listening saying, you don't know what you're doing. It's easy. You can select things. I admit it, but there's a visual satisfaction and user interface experience with a traditional map in a Metroid game that is far superior to this. Like, and don't even get me started on, in order to unlock or paint in the map, the size of the square is so small. I'm assuming it's the size of the morph ball. And like, to go down a standard hallway that you would unlock by running down in Metroid, you literally have to jump through the hallway to color it in completely. And I'm OCD. I assume, like, playing stuff like Symphony of the Night and getting 206% on a map, like, I want to fill in the entire map. That's what people who play these games do. So the fact that they're so unaware, did you guys have that instinct when you went into rooms in this game? Or would you have if it actually was easy to do?
I did a bit. Like, I know what you're saying. And I guess if there was some, like, if there were trophies and it was tied to like 100% map completion was a thing, maybe that would be more of an issue for me. Not that I would ever actually try to do it, probably, but the one thing is, I did think that maybe they did some of this on purpose, because what it does is you can see that, okay, there's a room I've been in, but I've never been to that corner of the room. So maybe there was something that was blocking me before. So, like, I don't know if that was an on purpose thing.
I still stand by my statement that it's easier to visually see that with a blue unfinished line of a room versus a complete room that's partially shaded in. Like, I think it's actually easier to interpret the visuals on the simple map versus the complicated map. And I don't think it's the worst map in video game history. It's not like God of War level or Control, but I just prefer old Metroid. Like, I almost prefer everything about old Metroid, which gets to, I mean, the defining aspect of this game is the stealth, I think. If you're going to compare this to any other Metroid, and the name of the game, which we have to give credit for, in my opinion, one of the best names for games in the last 10, 20 years, Metroid Dread is a fucking really good name. And I get that it was trying to evoke that feeling of dread during the Emmy sections, the robots that are stalking you. But I want to get Huck's impressions of this and Sean's, because he really hadn't gotten into it. But like, that's the defining mechanic of this Metroid game. I think that's
definitely the thing they put their stamp as
the hook mechanic, and it is the worst part of the game by far.
Yeah. I just want to rewind and go back to the map and say that one thing about the map that pissed me off was that when you unlock the map, quote unquote, it literally just like shades the background a slightly different colored of this like weird blob that the map might be. It's not even really like the map. It's like almost like how much more percentage of this square footage are you going to have to explore? Like, why not show the outline of the map? Like, you don't need to show where all the doors are if you don't want to, but why not at least show the outline of the map? Why do you have this like shaded in weird background on top of the background instead of just the outline of the area?
Well, two things with that. Sorry, I'm glad you brought it up. Another thing, even in every Metroid game, it kind of pushed you in a direction, and this game does none of that really. It uses those limiting gate mechanisms to keep you within sections, and like I said, just push you linearly through the beginning of the game. Secondly, the like, when I think of Super Metroid and other great Metroid games, the shape of the world is unique. Like, each section of the planet has a unique look, and kind of the blocks of the map have a distinct shape. Every one of these areas looks exactly the same. It's kind of like a rectangle or something of that shape. And like you said, it's just, okay, this is how big this rectangle is compared to the other rectangles. It's not giving me an idea of how things interconnect or what's leading to what. And that's part of the linear design of the game, where you're literally just going up, right? Where in the other games, there's this sense of, I don't know whether left or right is going to be the main, or up or down is how this game's going to unfold. I don't know what direction I'm going. It's part of the discovery element of the game. And this is like, nope, just keep going up. You'll get there eventually. And then it introduces the colored gates and teleporters as like a shortcut mechanism, which I don't think there are enough of. You don't unlock fast travel with those teleporters until like you unlock every single one, which doesn't happen until like you're doing 100%, which I did. And it's like, that's a quality of life thing. Like, especially, towards the end, getting back to original place, especially with all the like, oh, this area is frozen now and every door's locked. Again, we're just pushing you down a linear path. And it's like, well, then I have to find a specific path because every door is locked or closed. And it just becomes like this tiresome exercise in finding the right path on the map rather than doing something fun or getting all these powers and going through the world. So yeah.
I started really, actually, when it came to that, when they started like freezing doors or making doors too hot or whatever, I just almost entirely relied on the map. And I would pause, open the map, look at every door that was frozen and basically map my route and being like, I can't go anywhere else. So at least they're telling me this ahead of time, so I kind of know where to go, I guess.
Yeah, it's
But
not that much fun to look at a map to see exactly the path you have to take.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah,
A map is supposed to like allow you to make this like do something fun or like, oh, where do I want to go next? It's looking at a map to find out where I can't go.
Well, yeah, I mean, you spend a lot of time in a map in a Metroidvania game, no matter what. But I definitely felt like every room I would go in, open the map, like it was constant because there were so many times when I went down and I thought I was going in the right direction. And then you get to some corner where something's closed and you're like, fuck, now I got to go all the way back up and around just because your initial glance of go this direction was wrong. And you had to be very precise. Like, oh, was that door actually open? No, it wasn't. I can't go that way.
Yeah.
Like that got frustrating.
I actually found that with the teleporters too. Like I found I would get to a teleport and I'm like, am I actually supposed to go in this now? Like it felt like it was kind of hidden away. Like, is this the route I'm supposed to take? And then I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And then almost every time it turned out to be the right way, which seems wrong to me.
You find out pretty quickly this game is telling you exactly where to go, and you're programmed to not think that in a Metroid game almost. And
exactly, like if you're like an experienced kind of Metroid person, and it's like you get some new power up, you immediately are looking through the map, going, okay, where can I go? I can go here, here, here. I'm going to get these things. The game doesn't want you to do that. It basically, as soon as you get that power up, there's some elevator or something right beside you, and that's where you're supposed to go. It does not want you to go exploring after that.
Yes.
And that, I didn't realize that till about halfway through because I definitely got lost a few times because I started doing backtracking and stuff. And then I was like, wait, where am I supposed to go? And there's no like flashing indicator on the map saying this is where you're trying to get to. And I was lost. So that,
which is so weird because like the fact that they're pushing you so like gating you and pushing you in such a linear direction, why not take the extra step and be like, this is like where you want to be. This is your next thing. Like it's already in the game. They've already figured all of this stuff out. It's not like there's multiple pathways. There's only one pathway. Why make me struggle to find out your one pathway?
Yeah, it's weird because like I feel like Metroid Fusion had the Adam AI character as well, and I'm pretty sure they had like a blinking dot of where to go throughout the entire game. And I think maybe some people complained about that at the time, and maybe they just didn't want that blinking dot because they thought that's what people don't like. But like, if you're not going to do that, then like you got to make it more open than this game is, I think.
In my opinion, the blinking dot was perfect because, well, at least from what I remember from like Super Metroid, I didn't play Fusion, but you get the dot on a map you haven't found yet. So you know the general direction you have to head. You don't know exactly where to go. And then along the way, probably halfway to the dot, you find the map. You're like, okay, now I know exactly where to go the rest of that little distance. And then you get to the dot and you're set. And it's, you explore a bit.
Exploration and discovery.
Exactly. You explore a little bit and then you get rewarded. And then your life is a little easier. And it makes perfect sense, that loop. And they 100%. Totally went away from this. And it's really a shame. I don't know why they did not have map markers for your objectives at all. And use the maps like every other Metroid. Use the maps. Did they go away from that in like the newer Metroids?
I honestly don't remember in like Return of Samus on 3DS and some of that stuff. I don't remember being this frustrated with the game at all. But I want to skip ahead a bit because it sounds like I'm being insanely negative and commenting on the lack of discovery. And I'm agreeing a lot with Sean and Andrew, but I said I like the game more than they did. And I will say, once I beat the game, I spent another 4 hours getting 100%. And that was the most fun I've had with this game. Like actually, once you have everything, the puzzles and discovery of figuring out how to get all the items was awesome. Once I could freely explore and not have to worry about gates, like it was so much fun. It felt like classic Metroid. And like, it's a weird game to criticize because the actual path of getting there, all the things we're talking about are real. They are like undeniable design problems, in my opinion. It is not subjective. These are objective design flaws. And then you get to the end game and I like had so much fun. So like my last memories of the game were fun. the exit sequence, the bosses are fantastic, but like getting to the last few hours that are awesome, really are a bit of for a Metroid game, they're a slog. And we've tangented from like the main defining mechanic, I brought it before, which is stealth and the worst thing in the game. So I want to talk about bosses for sure, because I think there's a lot to say about the bosses. But the stealth mechanic, avoiding the EMMI or EMI, what did you guys think?
Go for it, Sean.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, as I said last week, initial impressions, like the first couple hours, they throw you into these things pretty quickly, and it's frustrating because they're like instant kills, and you're kind of like struggling with like, what am I supposed to do here? I feel like in the middle of the game, first of all, there's some sections where they shut down the Emmys and they're like just less frequent, which I loved.
Yeah, that's not a bad sign. When they turn off their main mechanic, the game is way more fun. Yeah. That should show you something in playtesting.
And once you defeat them, you can eventually defeat them in each section, and then that opens it up, which is nice. So
they're gone. As soon as you don't.
Yeah. So like when they weren't around, I was like really enjoying the game. But I do agree. Every time it came back to them, I was like, you're gonna, when you have a new section where you have to cross through and an Emmy is there, you're gonna die like 10 times. And
it's an exercise in trial and error, luck.
Not there, and your path is clear, and you just run as fast as you can to get where you got to go. Like it's not fun. And even the part towards the end when you actually get the weapon to fight the Emmy, I found that annoying.
It's clumsy. And then if you fuck it up just marginally, like because you find a stretch of ground that has to be perfect, and like, oh, I missed it a bit, and then. I forget that I have to hold the right bumper to charge, because you don't use that mechanic very often. Now, obviously, whenever you get the weapon, they've designed that room so that it reminds you how to use those things. The doors, you have to use both versions. That's how you know you don't use it a lot, and it sucks because they have to remind you every time, oh yeah, you have to do this.
But it's a good thing they do.
Oh, if they didn't, it would be even worse. But like with Sean, last time when you had played, you hadn't gotten to... Like you were already frustrated and you hadn't gotten to the camouflage ability yet.
I did have it, but
okay. And to me, it gets even worse when you get that. Like you can only...
I never used it.
Yeah. you can only jump a certain way. And when you're used to jumping, like your typical diagonal screw attack jump or whatever, and then you do this weird, like lumbering jump, like I died every time. And that's probably why you didn't use it. It's like, oh, I've learned how to do this. Now I have to unlearn everything I know to make the game more slow and less fun. Like it's very poorly designed.
I actually didn't mind it because I found that if you would kind of tuck up against a wall and turn it on and just stand there, the Emmys would come up and kind of like scan you and then walk off.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, right? Standing there watching.
Well, I'm just saying I didn't have to replay as much as you guys, though. Like for me, those sections you said about 10 times, I would say I did it like 4 times. Basically, my plan was, okay, I'm going to drop in. If I start in like the top left corner, I'm going to go as fast as I can to the bottom left. If I die, I'm then going to go as fast as I can to the top right. And if I die, I'm going to go as fast as I can to the bottom right. And
because that's what stealth mechanics are all about. Going as fast as you can from one corner to the other, hoping to be avoided. Look, I've said it a million times. Nintendo cannot do stealth. Can someone give me an example of Nintendo doing stealth well? Breath of the Wild stealth sections are some of the most poorly designed sections of gameplay in video game history. The Lost Woods where you follow that Korok, it is the worst, an exercise in brutal game design. The Ninja Fort or whatever it is, when you have to do a stealth section and every time you fail, it kicks you back to the start and you have to do the easiest parts over and over again. Nintendo, just cut stealth from your games. You can't do it. It's fine. You're amazing at everything else. You'll never get it right. Copy someone else or drop it because you can't do it. But in terms of the Emmy stuff, they reveal how bad their own mechanic is with the parry and your opportunity to save your life, because they've made that so hard to do and so random as a last ditch attempt, which the menus tell you over and over again. Like, this mechanic is supposed to feel awful. You're not supposed to know how to parry. It's a random chance to get around this mechanic that we know is driving you crazy and killing you constantly. But don't be frustrated. You're playing the game wrong. And we haven't really taught you how to play it. And it's not fun to play it the way we told you to. So it's just like, it's so revealing within their own menus and mechanics. They know it's bad. I can't believe other reviewers, you were successful every single time?
I said I didn't get it a single time.
Oh, okay. I did it quite a few times, but I can't believe how, like, the bigger video game, like the Metacritic on this game, like, you're basically just reviewing old Metroids. You're saying Metroid is good, and you're not kind of going at this game for what it's trying to do, which, kind of like I said with Ori 2, the sequel, everything new it adds is worse than the base game. And we all love the base game. I still do. And when I'm in the end game of this, it feels like the base game, and I love it. But this game deserves more criticism.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. The Emmy stuff, like, I did use the Phantom Cloak a few times. Like, they have like little morph ball shaped things in the corner of the map where you can kind of duck in there and try to hide. But like, it was always like, for me, it was like, okay, if I get spotted, I'll try and use it. But usually by then it's too late anyway. So what's the point? I'd rather just run as fast as I can and try to get where I'm going. So
yeah, I got really frustrated too. I think it was like the second one where, like, I was standing against a wall and the thing came up and then just broke through the wall and got me. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I wasn't even moving. Like, it just magically knew I was there and broke through the wall. And that was even before
the little channels it can go through, right? They're
no, gated. This is like a tall wall, and I guess you could break it if you shoot it, but I didn't know that at the time, but it did. And it broke right through that wall and got me. And that was even before you get to the ones that can see through walls. So I was like, what the hell? And then you get the ones that freeze you, which are annoying as hell.
Yeah, so all the Emmys start to develop individual powers, which I like how those things are, you know, by sucking the power out, you're getting a power for your suit, or how it ties into story. I like that. But it's like a little here nor there because there's just Chozo balls that do the same thing anyway.
Yeah, I mean, contextually,
it's like a Mega Man-ish type thing like that, where you're getting your powers from bosses. I mean, it's a nice touch. I don't dislike it, but you know, it's not necessary.
To me, it's like, it just seemed weird because, like you said, there's still like the classic item balls where you pick stuff up, but then now suddenly I'm absorbing powers from enemies. Like, I don't know how. Like, we'll talk about the story. It's like complete nonsense, but I didn't understand how or why that was the way it was, other than they just wanted, at those specific points, you should get these powers. I guess I'll just say also, like, I mean, I think I definitely started enjoying the game a lot more in the middle, and then some of the boss fights and stuff started to frustrate me at the end. So, you know, like, overall I like the game, but still a bit disappointed with it. And definitely, you know, in terms of where it ranks in Metroid games, like, it's probably near the bottom, if I'm being honest.
The only argument I could really make would be Metroid 1, just due to the nature of the NES and how repetitive everything is, like, looking. Like, it's really tough to play that game without knowing where to go. And if you actually had to explore in that game without a guide, like, it would be extremely hard, like punishingly hard. So, but if you had the first Metroid that looked like Super Metroid, it would be a better game, I think.
Yeah, well, it's basically Zero Mission.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, yes, sure.
But yeah, I agree. Like, I think Other M would probably be the bottom still for me, but other than that, it would be Dread, I think.
At least I appreciate Other M doing something different. I wouldn't even consider it in the same realm, to be honest. It felt like an experiment, like the fact that it was Team Ninja. Like, it almost feels like I said, an experiment, and I can appreciate it as that. This is a Metroid game. This is a core. Well, we didn't even talk about this. It doesn't have Metroid 5 at the beginning. Sean and I were talking about this before, and I said, if I don't see Metroid 5 at the beginning of this. Every Metroid has Metroid.
The opening crawl or whatever.
Yes, it's like a Metroid and then a number. The fact that this didn't have Metroid 5, I knew I was in trouble. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. This is a bad thing. You've done this for every game. It's one of the coolest things ever that, you know, they're called all these different titles, but they don't actually market the game as the number, but within the game, it has the number. And like that, no other thing does that. It's super cool, and they blew it. They fucking blew it again.
I just want to say I found the game reminded me a lot of Metroid 2, the Game Boy one. How you had to sort of like destroy a certain number of Metroids and then it would unlock a new area. And I thought that's what they were going after with the Emmy parts. I thought you were going to have to, destroy the Emmy parts to unlock sort of like their area that they have closed off. But then they totally go away from that after like the second one or whatever when they start shutting them all down. And then it becomes basically just like this linear game through your door locking system. And yeah, I was kind of disappointed with that because I was sort of liking it. Once I got over the frustration and had my technique for going through the Emmy sections, I was like, okay, these are a little frustrating, but I can handle this. And it feels like I'm accomplishing something when I defeat these things. And then like the whole purpose of them kind of falls away. Like they don't even kind of become anything. I don't even think you have to destroy. I think I only killed 4 or 5 of them of the 7 or whatever that were around.
No, yeah, I think you destroy them all.
You do have to? Okay.
All 6, I think, yeah. Except for, I guess, maybe one story related you don't, but I might be getting that wrong. But I agree with what Sean said. Sean said it perfectly. When they were deactivated, I was happy. And it's like, that is the ultimate tell that when your game gets better, when they're deactivated, maybe they shouldn't have been in there at all, but they were so integral to the story and the gating that they have to be there. But again, they could have just been a sub boss or something like that rather than these weird sections because we might as well get into the bosses now. The main bosses I loved, like, except for maybe the underwater one. I liked it as being like a spin of having limited movement underwater. But the sub bosses, which are typically like fast, small enemies that you are just kind of avoiding, and they're like just difficult enemy encounters. Those bosses were weak and repetitive and kind of frustrating. But I mean, the main big bosses in the game, except for I was a little frustrated with the final boss because I don't think it tells you what to do very well. But the boss is really satisfying, fun. Lots of like different phases that are all interesting. Like it's not like slight modifications on the same phase. Like Kraid has like a huge divergent phase and it's like, oh, this is totally different. Really creative. I love that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I like the boss fights overall. I think there's a few that there's some key information they don't tell you very well, which we'll get to in a sec. But yeah, the sub bosses I really did not like. I'm not a fan of reusing bosses multiple times in a game. Like generally that just pisses me off. I'm like, fuck, I already beat you, now I gotta beat you again and you're more powerful and all that stuff. Like it just, yeah. And I just felt like those Chozo warrior guys or whatever they were, I would always get them to the second phase, and then in that second phase they could do like 3 energy tanks of damage in one shot, and it was just so frustrating.
And then when you're successful, the first time you finally are good at this game, there's all of a sudden they introduce the parry mechanic in a quick time event out of nowhere. It's like, why am I expecting to all of a sudden when the camera changes to have to parry mid cinematic almost? And it's like, where did that come from? Like anytime they start doing parry stuff, I guess you get used to it by the end, but the first time it does that to you and I die, I'm like, oh, I'm finally going to beat this thing. And then I die because I had to parry to finish it off. That's brutal. Like that is bad design.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the parry or the melee attack they just introduced in Samus Returns, right?
And it's not very good.
And yeah, you never use it. You never think about it, and then suddenly it's like you have to use it in a few boss fights. And
It's just it doesn't encourage choice and meaningful play in the player. You can't use them on half of the enemies. It's like only using it in very specific situations and not that often. If it was something like a way of approaching combat and integrated into any enemy, it's not. I think that's kind of new in this Metroid game compared to other ones, figuring out what weapons work on what enemies, like specifically. Like I found that kind of frustrating and like surprising what stuff worked on particular enemies at times. It's not a huge deal to me, but yeah, the parry mechanic, like it's got to be in the game more. Like it's just not used enough or in interesting enough ways to justify its need.
I thought it worked well with sort of like the eyeball door equivalent enemy.
I hated the eyeball door.
Oh yeah, I thought it worked well how you had to parry that thing. I got pretty good at it by practicing on those, and I found that most cases, if there was an enemy that was like a four-legged enemy, you almost always had to use the parry on it to sort of like
Yeah, for
disrupt it
sure.
or
The
whatever.
charging enemies, 100%.
So there was like some consistency there, but then yeah, when it comes to the boss fights um and using it in the cinematics, they do kind of spring that on you, and you got to kind of be expecting it. And of course, since it is, you know, like kind of a special case cinematic, you're not really ready for it every time. It's
yeah,
not
and then you got to
necessarily
start all over again when you fail.
yeah.
So,
Though I must say about the balance of the boss fights, I found I was dying probably like 4 to 5 times on average. And I think that's okay because I could see each time I was making the progress towards getting better. With the exception of like a few bosses where I found I couldn't really tell if I was doing damage or not. And it was like even some of those Chozo warrior guys, like I'm not even sure if I'm actually hitting them when I'm hitting them, and it was a little frustrating. And you just kind of had to like keep shooting them and hope you were doing the damage, you know. And some of it was good, some was
There is
bad.
a brief white flash when you do damage, but I don't think it's accurate sometimes. Like there's a cooldown on it, which doesn't seem fair to the player, and it's I don't know, it's not great. But
can I just say the
yeah.
one I had the biggest problem with was the experiment, whatever it was called. And so with that fight, there is a part in the middle, I think like in his second phase, where he like attaches tentacles or something to the wall and
Yeah.
he heals. I didn't know he was healing there. Like, and I read strategy guides because like I was getting into the flow of the fight. I felt like I was doing pretty good. And then every time that section would happen, like, so he's healing himself, but he's also like charging up this blast where he shoots at you. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just dodge the blast until he's done this because I can't, I tried the swarm missile a couple times and it didn't work for me. I think I felt like I didn't have enough time to get it off. So I was like, I'll just keep dodging. And then this boss fight was taking me like half an hour. And like, I was like, how much health does this guy have? And I'm like looking up strategy guides and people say, yeah, shoot the arms, but they don't say like he's healing there. Nobody in any of the strategy guys say that. So I'm like, oh, okay, I shoot or I don't, like I'll just do more damage once this section's done. But no, if you don't shoot those arms, you will never finish this boss fight.
I did not encounter that because I shot the arms, like duh. But I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that's what you're supposed to do, but I just like every time I tried to aim at all of them, I would get hit right before I locked onto the last one.
Okay, so this ties in a bit to my end game versus actual game criticisms. Because I don't think the game teaches you its new mechanics very well, including that phase shift kind of dodge, where the way it explains it when you get it, it sounds really complicated when it's really just like hit A to dash. Like, and I was like, I'm worried about like, I'm going to use this meter and stuff like this. All it really needs to do is like use A to dash. You can dash 3 times. And it made it sound way more complicated than that. And even like how you, like there's so much button mapping. And I guess that's a good point to the game, in my opinion. You're always getting something new. Like I felt like every 10, 15 minutes, I'm powering up my suit. This idea of, unlocking new things and always getting new stuff. I think this game does that really well, perhaps better than any Metroid game. But at the same time, you start having so many different ideas mapped onto the controller. And I don't think the game teaches you how to discern between those, or like being good at discerning those. So by the time I beat the game, like a couple bosses really make you learn the dash mechanic, the experiment, and the final boss, you really have to get down some of the mechanics. Like you have to be good to beat the boss. I don't think the gameplay in between does a good job of necessitating that skill. But the once you are good at it, once you finally like train your brain to understand the Metroid controller, which I did in the end game, it's really good. I'm like, you know what? Now that I understand how to do everything, basically through my own exploration and like needing to figure out these things, the game doesn't really make you figure things out. It's a lot of like, I think I know what I'm doing, and I'll give you the perfect example. The grapple beam is the most like dated, brutal, like lack of quality of life mechanic in the game by far. The fact that you have to hold shoot the entire time you have the grapple beam is insane. Any other game, as soon as you grapple onto something, it kind of switches modes where you're locked in and you're swinging and deciding what to do. The fact that you have to hold the grapple beam while you're going up towards it, like the fact that my instinct is not to do that is because every single game since Super Metroid has figured out that's frustrating and we can make this better. And now my brain is programmed to not assume that. And now I have to learn to hold this button the entire time. And then when you have to like do consecutive grapple beams and aim, and like, it's awful. Like it's just plain awful. And it doesn't need to be. Games have figured this out.
And luckily, I think there's only one or two real sections like that. So obviously they knew, like, we better not use this many places.
The grapple beam is really bad. That's like classic bad Metroid.
Yeah. Yeah. What boss did you say you used so I barely ever use the boost. I almost always use the space jump or spin jump or whatever you call it, screw attack.
The experiment puts that purple sludge on the ground, and if
you really got
if you don't dash, it's like I found it almost impossible not to avoid, but to avoid the initial burst where it shoots, and then like, it's designed to leave that little gap that you have to dash into. It's almost the length of the dash. So I kind of knew I needed to use it, but at that point I'm like, I've only used the dash for those stupid doors that you have to use it on. It felt like a gating. It felt as soon as you get it, it allows you to dash through those gates that can sense you or whatever. And in my head, it kind of trains you to assume it's just another gating tool. I don't think it has enemies, or like, I think you could do like a robot enemy or a computer enemy in a room that teaches you like how useful the dash can be through all elements of the gameplay. I feel like that was severely lacking, making me use the dash in combat rather than like, well, use it if you want. Like it should have taught me how good this dash is.
Yeah, see, I didn't even think to use it. I would just kind of like start spin jumping. I'd kind of try to anticipate when it was going to end, and I just like start spin jumping early, and then kind of like wait for it to shut off, and then drop, run past it, and then keep going, kind of thing. So I didn't even think to use it. You know, it wasn't even on my mind.
Yep, makes sense.
But these are not hard problems to solve. Like, games have figured this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the parry mechanic. It kind of stinks. I feel like we focused on a lot of the mechanics and bosses, and I don't know, not great elements design-wise. Mm-hmm. Is there any positive stuff we should talk about? I kind of said pacing of powers, bosses, music, artwork in the later sections, I think is good. Like how it does like 2.9D graphics. I think that gets more creative towards the end, and I wish they would have leaned into that more.
Yeah, the background art definitely gets more interactive feeling. And I thought they were going to go somewhere. There was like a bunch of areas at the beginning where you kind of walk into a room and then something kind of like starts banging out like a metal wall.
100%.
And I'm like, okay, this is going to have a great payoff. Nothing. And then there's even another area where you go into and there's like a hole and there's like some crazy monster that like goes by it. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell is that? Like, we're going to find out what that is later. Nope. Like,
Yeah, there's some cool background stuff, and then yeah, it doesn't lead anywhere. It's just window dressing, I guess.
Well, in terms of setting the table, when you first get that special weapon for fighting the Emmys, where it changes the camera perspective, like I thought that is like, okay, Nintendo is going to use this kind of playing with camera in a 2.5D game. They're going to be the best at it. And it's really only with that when you get that weapon and fighting the Emmy and the final boss, I guess. Like I thought, oh, they're going to really take advantage of this in a way that I think Nintendo would be great at. And it's a bit of a wet noodle as well, like to be honest. And kind of like speaking to that stuff a bit, the 2.5D elements, I think Huck's right on the money with, okay, it sets up things and never follows through on them. But the beginning of the game feels really bland in terms of the world. And there's not a lot of 2.5D elements, and you're just kind of, I can't even remember what the first sections look like, to be honest. Each section does not have a distinct feel to me. Where when I think of other Metroids, each section I'm like, oh, I know what it's got a color theme. It's like there's a vibe, whether it's as simple as like elemental, fire, green, goo, whatever. This game really doesn't have that. Every area feels kind of generic, not ugly, but undistinguishable from previous areas.
especially since you start like freezing the other areas. So then the water area becomes icy, and then the other area is icy, and then you're like, okay, well, and then
and they all have rooms that need the ice suit versus the lava suit and all this stuff.
Yeah, the one progression that is there is just that the closer you get to the surface, the more sort of organic life and plants and stuff there is, which is cool. And I think it does. I think the visuals get better as the game progresses. I didn't mind like also some of the like Chozo kind of themed stuff as they pull that stuff in as well. But yeah, I mean, like I can't say the visuals blew me away. Like it's probably the best looking Metroid game to date, just based on hardware and stuff for the most part. But and that's cool. That is
if
a plus.
You relate it to hardware, I think Metroid Prime and Super Metroid are better looking Metroid games, like in terms of art style.
Yeah, I would agree.
Even I might even put them up against each other right now. Like I think I would rather look at Super Metroid than Metroid Dread, and possibly Metroid Prime if it was HD.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the 2.5D thing to begin with. I was kind of like, I kind of would have rather like a straight up 2D, but I get why they did it. But it's fine. Like I think I do agree though what you're saying, like in terms of like environments just are a mishmash of themes and stuff. Like they don't really feel like a location that has a purpose or means anything. And like I just, we kind of already talked about this, but I just don't like how many sections there are. Like I'm trying to think of other Metroid games. I feel like they usually have like 5 different areas. And this one, I don't know if it was like a like some sort of constraint in terms of like the size of them or something. They couldn't do bigger open levels, but you're just like going on shuttles or elevators like way too often in this game.
Mm-hmm. And I think
could have been a memory thing.
I can remember rooms in Metroid Prime. I think one of the like amazing design and visual aspects of Metroid Prime is each room feels so unique. Like when you enter a room or backtrack, you're like, oh, I remember this room. I remember where I wanted to go and what I couldn't do without even looking at the map sometimes. Like every room has a personality. And even Super Metroid, like I can remember weird like long tunnels and what they look like. Like I can recall them by memory. I don't think there's anything in this game, ironically, other than the things Huck mentioned that are these moments in the 2.5D background that don't have payoffs that I'll remember visually about the game, other than the look of the bosses. And I'll lean into it again. I think Nintendo is underrated, even though the game has limited cinematics. I think the way they frame Samus and the recurring visual theme of the visor and changing like the transparency of the visor and her like eye and face expressions through the visor, I think that looks amazing. Like that is so well done.
Yeah. Yeah, there is definitely, I would say, that Nintendo sheen on the game for sure, but it is definitely missing just some of those that gameplay design that brings it down for me.
Nintendo's design is starting to lack a lot, I think. Like other game companies have caught up substantially. Nintendo would always stand out design-wise. And I know this is no surprise. I think they're getting a bit of a free pass based on legacy in terms of what they're contributing to game design these days.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think you mentioned score, Frank, but the score did not stand out to me at all. Like, I mean, it's not. That's another thing that could distinguish areas and kind of give each room
crucial.
or section of personality. And like, I could not. The themes are not. There's no melodies that stick with you, and there's also just no atmosphere really that stuck with me.
Other than traditional Metroid stuff, like the weird kind of beeping audio track when you're like in rooms that have nothing going on and stuff like that. That stuff is still good, and the classic Metroid sounds. I mean, if we're gonna give Nintendo credit for anything, I think they have the best sound design and like iconic sounds of any game company. Like there's been lots of franchises since Zelda, Mario, and Metroid that have tried to have like unique sounds when you complete puzzles and do rooms. None of them come even close to like the sound of finding a Chozo ball, opening a chest in Zelda. Like they absolutely crush iconic sounds when they need to be iconic. When like these are like reward mechanisms in games where you hear the sound and you feel good, they absolutely like no one comes close at all. And it's not just like a nostalgia thing. They are amazing sounds. New generations that play these games would probably have the same feeling about those sounds.
And I think there's something to be said where like I've just looked up to be sure that the original Metroid came out 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Like and the sounds still
right?
stand up. 86 it says, yeah, on here. So I mean, you have this game that set the stage with like an NES audio chip or whatever the hell they did back then as like the core audio sound effects for the Metroid like franchise, and they still standing. Like you're still hearing the same introduction song. You're still hearing similar sound effects for all the enemies, for the weapons. Like it's really incredible that those sounds still stand the test of time. And like, why change them? And I'm glad they don't change them because they are essentially as tied to the brand as the gameplay, as the name. Like without those sounds, it's like with Mario and the like boing jump and the coin retrieval. Like that's part of the game too. You couldn't do it without those sounds, and I'm glad they don't, go away from it.
Well, in terms of classic Metroid sound design, I don't know if you want to get into this, Sean. You had talked about this with me a bit about maybe it was on the. I don't know if it actually made it to the Film Junk episode in the spoiler discussion, but about a particular movie franchise that must be talked about when we discuss Metroid.
I mean, we touched on it somewhere, I think, but just, I mean, it's obviously was spawned partially inspired by Alien. And, like, I think the first two games for me, like they definitely had a real atmosphere and a kind of a creepy, I wouldn't really say they were horror games, but like, certainly there was a feeling of like eeriness to them. And maybe it's just worn off at this point. I'm not sure, but I don't feel like these recent games really have that. But there's definitely a lot of comparisons and interesting, overlap with the Alien series, and right down to the boss being called Ridley, and like female protagonist. Like that was a big twist sort of ending, I guess, for the original Metroid. So it's kind of cool. But I mean, again, and I think that's partially what they were trying to get back to with the Emmy stuff. I just don't think it really worked.
For sure. I do want to say another mechanic that is not good. And I'm thinking of this because I loved getting 100%, but there are a series of items that require a mastery of the Shine Spark ability, which is doing the dash run and then pressing down and doing a jump, which is a continuation of a mechanic from Super Metroid. But the fact that you have to push in on the left stick to activate this and then eventually hold down, and sometimes you're like, why is that not a button? Like, the fact that it has to be down when I'm moving anyway is so clumsy and clunky that I can't believe they haven't figured out better ways to do this yet. Like, just let me charge it, hit a button. There's no need for this, like, like, I fail so many times. When you have a limited amount of space, I just want to press down on the controller and I can't in time.
Well, something else a lot of people have brought up too is there's no D-pad support for this game, so you got to use the analog stick. So whenever you're like trying to press down to duck to charge that, or there's a few other things like with aiming and stuff. Sometimes, what's that?
I guess the morph ball is, yeah, you can go into it by pressing down, right?
Yeah, they do have. I think if you hit the left bumper, whatever the right bumper, slide button is, if you're not running, I think it'll activate it as well. But yeah, there's definitely some points where a little bit of precision in terms of up and down would have been nice, because sometimes you start inching left or right when you don't want to.
Yeah, well, they ran out of buttons. They had to put the cloak on the right D-pad or whatever.
Well, so, yeah, well, and you had to be able to press in to activate a bunch of stuff too on the stick. They needed the L3 or R3, whatever Nintendo calls it.
Yeah. Did any of you guys have any frustrations with the morph ball? Because I found that sometimes I would accidentally go into it. Other times I would not be able to get out of it. I could then also when I wanted to go into it, I couldn't. It just would like not let me. Like, did anyone else have like little control issues like that?
I didn't have anything major that I can think of, but I think it leads to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is did you play in handheld mode, Huck and Sean? Like,
I played a mix of both, but I definitely preferred the Pro controller.
Did you do kickstand, handheld? Like, I used a Pro controller for everything, and I can't imagine.
I did.
Okay.
So my Joy-Cons, my left Joy-Con in particular, has like some crazy drift up. So like I can't do anything with that thing anymore. So I was Pro controller kickstand primarily, and then I also did some on the TV with the Pro controller. But yeah, I can't play with that thing anymore.
I can't imagine playing this game without a Pro controller. Like, especially when you get to some of the weird, like, awkward multiple button pressing with stuff on the shoulders. Like, it would be awful.
Yeah, the Pro controller is definitely preferred. But yeah, on the morph ball thing, I like anytime where you were like under pressure and had to go into a morph ball real quick, I was like, I couldn't do it because of the analog thing. But now that I think about it, I probably should have just used the shoulder button, because I think that would have worked. I think.
But you would have slid first.
Sliding. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess that's true. If you're running, you would slide. You would have to stop, stand still, and then do it, which would also be frustrating. So,
I mean, the slide was introduced in Metroid Returns, or Samus Returns, pardon me. I don't know if it was in the Game Boy edition. I'm assuming not, but I like the slide, and
I like it a lot.
I wish you could use it. Like, I wish there was more reasons to use it, but I think it's a pretty, like, fast, satisfying mechanic.
I use that a lot on like the final boss when he had his kind of like beams coming down. I'd be like running at him, and then I'd slide the last little bit to kind of duck under it, and I found that pretty satisfying. Way to use that mechanic, and I still used it. I still, it was still in my brain to keep using it. So I guess that's something that obviously I used it more than some of the other moves. I wanted to bring up, like, they have basically all your traditional Metroid stuff, and then they just like tacked on the new stuff at the beginning, which I found kind of odd. That, you got the power ball, you've got the ball jump, you got the ball bomb, you got the missiles, you got I guess there's no super missiles, which is correct. Oh, I guess they have the ice missiles or whatever they call
They just power, but like there's not a distinct mode for.
Yeah,
I guess the swarm missile is.
The swarm missile, yeah.
That was the one new addition I kind of did like, was the swarm missile. I ended up using that a lot.
I think this game is better at other Metroid games at encouraging you to use missiles a lot. because when I first played Metroids, I'm like, I got to save my missiles and save them for bosses. I think this game does a good job of like use your missiles on regular enemies, whatever. They're a good time. Use
and the
them
bosses,
on the walls.
and the bosses usually give you a ton of missiles when you like pass certain stages, I guess. So you're always rewarded for using your missiles because you constantly get more.
One thing Castlevania certainly did better than Metroid in the Metroid-like genre was save stations filling your health and weapons. Because I got to some sections in this game where I would hit a save point and I had to go through this incredibly hard section with low health, and I had to do it a million times. And especially if you get an item on the way in that section, like I got to do that again. I got to do all this stuff again. And it's like, let's get to the checkpointing system, which I don't think is strong. And Huck, you experienced it with the final boss, having to go up this elevator and watch cinematic every time.
Well, I didn't have to. I mean, the cinematic wasn't that long.
You can skip it, but there's also the Emmy mechanic where you have to leave the room, go back in, and to me, those are all there just to extend the length of the game. Like, I don't think they need to be there. I think it's a way of making the game seem longer than it actually is to people that are playing it, like in a frustrating way. And
even the door locking stuff we talked about before, like they're basically just adding doors that you don't need, like the boost door. You don't need that. Like Super Metroid did it fine with like 4 types of doors.
Yes.
Why do you need a boost door? Why do you need a pressure plate door? Why do you need a lava door? Why do you need a cloak door? Why do you need a hot door, a cold door, a regular door, one shielded for wave beam, one shielded for plasma beam, one shielded for whatever, like shielded by an enemy. Like they have like 1,000 ways to block the doors. It's a little ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah. I just on the checkpoint thing, I agree that there are some things where you end up having to do stuff over and over again and it's frustrating. But I mean, it has checkpoints. Like some Metroid games don't have checkpoints at all, right? Like it's just the save station. And if you die at a boss fight or anything, you're back at that last save station, which I was glad that there was something a little more than that.
The 3DS one did that too.
Yeah, right.
But to me, that's again kind of shows, especially the checkpoints in the Emmy doors, is a like admission that this is not good.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, this is a nitpick. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week. The fact that when you die, it brings you a quit menu, and if you're not used to playing Nintendo games and you have B and A switched, I accidentally quit out of the game 3 times. And lost a lot of progress, like significant progress. And please explain the reasoning behind this, because has anyone ever in the history of playing a Metroid game been like, you know what? I could put my console to sleep right now. Like I could see in like the NES or SNES, but you know what? I'm playing a Switch now. I can put my console to sleep. But instead of going to sleep, I just want to be sure. I'm going to go back to the main menu just for fun. Like, why even give me that option on screen? Like, they already have it in the system menu in pause. At what point would you ever say, yep, this is the time I go back to the main menu? And the only reason I can think of why it's there is because there's definitely memory leak errors in this game. And I had crashes from playing for extended sessions, 100%.
So I never did it only because you warned us. But they don't throw up the "Are you sure?"
I think they do, but then
they do.
Your brain's kind of programmed to like the first time you hit it and you realize you hit the wrong thing, you
then
flip
you hit the other button.
Yeah, and it's a complete reverse mind fuckery. That is like, thanks Nintendo, thanks for doing everything different. You're so cool. You can't be like everyone else and fucking just make the A button at the bottom like every other game on planet Earth.
So just you mentioned bugs. I just read that there's a like
progression bug, right?
It's some sort of major game crash that involves the map markers, which the game has map markers. I don't know who actually uses these things, but Apparently,
I used one.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
But I guess if you do use them, I don't remember the details, but something to do with using a map marker and reaching that marker will cause the game to crash, and you could lose whatever progress you had, I guess, up to that point. But, it's kind of annoying, but I certainly didn't encounter it. And just on the map too, forgot to mention that I think, did we talk about this on the show or not? But the idea of like, there's so many objects on the map, like so many types of doors and items, and like, it's like so littered with stuff, and it's hard to pinpoint something.
Even the items, knowing an acquired one versus an unacquired one, they kind of dim it out. It's not very obvious.
Yeah. But they do have a way, if you highlight an item and you hit Y, I believe, it'll highlight all other items of that type in the map, which is kind of handy. But yeah, like it's definitely something you come across where it's like you get this new item, you're like, okay, what are the things I can go back to now? And, quick glance at the map, there's no way to, like, there's just so much stuff. So being able to have those highlighted is handy in some cases. And that's not mentioned on the map interface anywhere. I just stumbled across it. So.
The Y?
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is. It is mentioned.
I didn't see it there.
Yeah, okay. It's like toggle all of these or
select
like
markers, I think it is.
Yeah, or filter icons or something like that. Yeah, after you mentioned it to us, I saw it on the map. But it's again, the map's so cluttered that your brain just like doesn't even see shit. It's just gone.
So, I mean, I don't have a lot of other stuff to say other than story. And did anyone else have anything major? Are we missing an element of the game? Okay, go for it.
Well, there was two things, one minor, one major. The minor thing was when you first get to the water area and the computer thing that's talking to you is saying like, oh, make sure you find the gravity suit and something else. They're like the most important. So you go through like another 5 hours of the game before you get the gravity suit. And I was like, did I miss it? Like, especially that water boss with the tentacle things. I'm like, am I fucked? Yeah, am I fucked because I don't have the gravity suit here? Because I can barely jump in this water here. But no, you're obviously not supposed to. But it really, like them saying that put me in such a mindset that, okay, I'll find the gravity suit soon and then I'll be set. And no, you don't find it till like the very end of the game, which really messed me up for a long time and made me feel like I was constantly in the wrong spot and had missed something, which is not fun.
That reminds me of when you get the double jump. And like if you read the menu instructions for the double jump and the gravity suit, it's like underwater you can double jump, but you can't add height to your jump. Like and they make you use that right away both times in kind of weird ways. And it's like it's not easy to do either. The first time you get it, you have to time those things perfectly underwater. And it's like, why is this even here for like one thing? Like,
yeah, it took
they probably had people asking like, why can't I double jump underwater? And these are there just to show you can't double jump.
There are a few places where you can like get items by cutting across the water, like in a straight line, but you just can't go higher, right? So that's what it is. But yeah, I agree. Like I there was a few times where I didn't even realize that that's what I could do with this thing. So.
The other thing,
was that the nitpick or was that the major?
That was the minor nitpick. The other thing, minor related to the suits, is that in all of the like descriptions, they're like it increases your armor defense, and then you get to the next boss, and they just absolutely wipe the floor with you.
Like, thank God I got that armor.
Yeah, like thanks for nothing, armor. Imagine if I didn't have this thing. So my major thing, which I know, so the one mechanic we haven't talked about, which I don't know if this is new to this game, but the like scan ability where you can charge up this scan ability and it shows you in the current room you're in where all the hidden blocks are. So before you get that ability, there are multiple sections in this game that you are supposed to just shoot the walls for. And they are on
talked about this, yeah.
They are on the critical path. You have to shoot these walls. So the
Yeah.
first one you run into, it's okay. Like there's like a gap above the ceiling and you can see critters up there. So, okay, you're going to like shoot up there. You'll find it. Maybe. And then
I did.
you didn't? Yeah,
No,
that's what I
Pixel
mean.
did.
It's fucking annoying.
Now I hold some embarrassment in this scenario because like it is classic Metroid. In order to explore in the first Metroid and Super Metroid, you have to shoot floors out and you have to do things.
Yeah.
But like I'm embarrassed that I'm like, of course you have to shoot. I just think the first few times you do it, they're not in obvious spots. Like it's really not like saying like, okay, don't forget you have to shoot floors in this game or whatever.
The worst one is the next one you come across is when you get to the second area. You come up the elevator and you run left, there's just a wall. You run you run right and there's the door. You go out the door, every fucking door out there is locked. So you're like, okay, well, am I supposed to be here?
Yeah, you're like, I guess I can't get to this area yet.
So then you go back and then you can't go anywhere in there. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going back to where I was before. And then it turns out that in that elevator room, now, in Metroid, there is rarely ever anything hidden in elevator rooms, in save rooms, in any rooms like that. Missile rooms, map rooms, there's nothing hidden in those. This one, there is a hidden wall that you cannot see on the other side of. You need to shoot the wall for it to open it up, then you can see it. And that is the critical path. You have to do that. That is egregious. Like, how can you expect people to do that?
And I think for a lot of people, like I've been reading stuff or just, I guess, picking up stuff on Twitter and stuff. Like there are people, you know, playing this game. This is the first Metroid game they've ever played.
Yeah,
and they're hitting
35
stuff
years
like
old.
this.
Yeah, they don't know that. That's why I said I have embarrassment, but I agree for someone who's never done it before, there's no excuse for the design there.
Yeah. Well, and I was talking to you guys about how I've been watching all these David Jaffe videos about how he's ripping this game, and he got stuck at the first spot you did. And he was like, no, I'm fucking done. Like, if they expect you to do that, I'm out. Because he did probably what you did. He probably waited till that guy on the ceiling walked a little too far away from the broken bot, shot him, and then just kind of continued on and got stuck and then, you know, wandered around for 20 minutes. But there's another one which not as bad, but also sort of an homage to like breaking the glass ceiling and the glass hallway in Super Metroid with the power bomb. Near the end of the game, there's these hallways that have little dents in them, similar to in Super Metroid. There was like a glass hallway in water and cracked. So these ones similar. The ceiling is bent in a bit, and there's like sparks coming out. I'm like, I'm gonna have to power bomb these shits when I get the power bomb. I know because I am a Metroid veteran. Other people would not know this. So you get up to a critical path that is blocked. There's nothing there. All there is this hallway. You do the scan, and it does not say that you can power bomb that fucking wall.
Oh, really?
Because it's not a block, right? Like
that pissed me off. Yeah. Like the fact that it doesn't tell me I can do it. Like, how would a normal person know to power bomb there? They wouldn't.
Like it's again, unexpected because it's part of the environment. Like it's not part of the blocks. Like it's different.
Well, and you give them a tool to scan the hidden stuff. This is like a hidden thing. Why would they know the power bomb can destroy Geo in the world?
The only justifiable reason is on the map, the square that's revealed for that room is huge. And you're only in like the middle section. I don't disagree with you, but I'm saying
you could go around potentially.
Potentially.
You know, it's just, it is a sin to me to do that. Like, you give people a tool to show them the way, and then you don't show them the way with that tool. Like, are you kidding me? Get out of here.
That reminds me too. There is another mechanic before you get that radar thing, where certain parts of the map flash white to say, "Hey, there's something hidden there."
Yeah,
but like,
you can't get any of them. They're almost all like you need to be at the end of the game to get half of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's consistent. Like there's a lot of places that had hidden things that were not flashing white. So I'm like, what does this mean? Like it's their definition of hidden is strange. It's like, I guess it's something that is like not visible at all. Like it's like a block you have to break and then there's like a missile tank behind that block or something.
Yeah, but I do at least like having the flashing area for secret stuff in the end game, which I cannot stress enough. I had so much fun getting 100% in this game. It was amazing. Like it was so like that's where Nintendo design shines. Some of the cool ways that they have puzzle solving for using your abilities, like that was really fucking fun.
It almost makes me wonder if the way they designed this game, which seems crazy, but like, did they just build the world and kind of run through it and be able to move through the whole world and then start thinking about locking it down and putting gates in like afterwards? Like, it seems like that would be a bad way to do it, but maybe that would make some sense in terms of like why it flows so well when all the gates.
I mean, if you're going to make this game, there's only two ways to do it. One, you build it room by room, and you decide when you're going to put something else somewhere. You like, okay, we can fold back here and do something here, like you're decide, or you have to do the whole thing, like you said, or at least each section has to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some iteration along the way, I guess, but I don't know. Yeah, just I agree though. Like there was a couple points where I was stuck and I was like, literally like, okay, is this a bug? Like, is this a soft lock? Am I fucked because I did something wrong?
Yeah, me too.
And it's funny because I was replaying a bit of Metroid Fusion before this came out, and right at the beginning of that game, same thing. They do this weird thing where they lock all the doors, and it's because you have to find this one hidden block. And you're running around and you're like, all the doors are locked. Like I can't go anywhere. I think I got to restart the game. And it's like, that's not good. Like I know Metroid is about exploration as we've been saying, but when it's kind of at this point where you think you may have broken the game or the game is broken, that's bad.
Oh yeah. Are you guys, I mean, I have some story stuff to talk about, I guess, sort of story stuff. I also wanted to talk a bit about the shield guys and also the final boss. I don't know if you guys want to get into that first or leave the final boss for later.
Maybe final boss for story.
Okay.
Shield guys, and the Chozo warriors or whatever. Like
we touched on it a bit.
They weren't that much fun. They were kind of frustrating. Again, they weren't that much fun the first time you do it. The fourth time, they're definitely, or when you do two of them, it's definitely not fun.
Yeah. And the shield guys in particular, well, I guess all of them, all those warrior guys, do they even change? It seems like they're the exact same except for a different color scheme.
Pretty much.
I don't think they have any different move sets. They don't.
The shield changes, and whether or not you can destroy the shield changes. And some of them,
really?
I feel like the first guys didn't have a shield. And
correct.
Eventually
so they add a shield. The shield's destroyable, and then eventually the shield is not destroyable.
Oh, I didn't even know the shield was destroyable. Actually, I don't think I destroyed the first couple.
And if you destroy,
that was it.
Sweet missiles and health.
Okay. Yeah, I just found them that there's just too many of them. Like they just throw these guys at you for really no reason other than to pad the length. And yeah, I think you kind of mentioned that, Frank, beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of length padding in this game. Which now, in terms of the shooting walls and what that means for Metroid games, and do I think I'm in a soft lock? It has to be stated that same problem would occur in classic Metroid games like Metroid and Super Metroid. Like it's not like those games do a better job of doing that type of stuff, and we forgive them because they were like done at a time where that's the way games were. So I take a little bit of the blame off of Metroid in this scenario and put it on me, but I understand Huck's empathy and Sean's empathy for players who have never played a Metroid game before.
Yeah, it's just weird because like that was the first time. Well, I guess Metroid Fusion was probably the first time, but like those two situations feel different to me. Like having played other Metroid games, I never had that thought like, is the game broken? And
I agree.
That's just like
in my head, I'm wondering, is it because I saw someone else play Metroid? Like, did I actually figure that out for myself the first time I played a Metroid game? Like, I don't know.
No.
Yeah,
I definitely did not.
Especially Metroid 1. Metroid 1, I never would have figured out some of the floors you have to shoot. And
I remember Metroid 2. I don't think I looked anything up for that game, and I played through it all. But like the thing they added in that is the spider ball, so you can like just go around entire rooms and just bomb everything until you find whatever's there.
Even on Game Boy, it had that. I never played it on Game Boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Game Boy. Yeah.
Yeah, the one quick sort of random comment, because we were talking like at the beginning about, is the game linear and does it just feel linear? I think the game does have sequence break possibilities. I don't know for sure. I feel like I read some things about it, but just that you can like get items out of order and stuff, because I know for sure I picked up a power bomb before I knew what a power bomb was. I don't know if you guys had that.
Yeah, but that's just that when you get that, it tells you like you can't use this item yet, but it keeps
right.
No, I
It's
don't
like
think
the upgrade. You
yeah,
didn't
it's just
actually.
like
You
you
weren't
can
able to
find
use
this item, you just can't use it yet.
Right, but I guess I'm just saying,
I
like,
got 2 or 3 of those.
it's not like a linear game would never let you pick up an item that you don't know what it is yet, right? Like this game at least is open enough that you can do things a little bit out of order.
I disagree. A linear game would do this specifically to make you think it's not linear. It's like, oh, hey, you got something you can't use yet. Isn't this game strange and weird? No, you just found a secret in a room. We could have made it a missile, but we made it a power bomb. So you think like, oh, there's lots of stuff to do in this game. Sorry, Sean, you fell for it. You got fooled.
But I mean, like you can see items and they show up as question marks on your map. Like that's clear, but being able to pick it up before you've actually got the thing.
But it's not the item itself. It's just like tank capacities for those things.
I guess, yeah.
But I mean, it's still a Metroid game. It's not the worst game ever. So, and end game is amazing. If you guys play the end game, I'm curious to see what you think, because I thought there's no way I'm getting 100% in this game. And then by the time I had all the powers and did the escape sequence at the end, I'm like, I feel amazing right now. I want to go back and get everything in this game. And I did, and it was super fun.
Like I did some collection before I did the final boss fight, and I was definitely feeling the enjoyment. But some of those Shine Spark sections, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do this.
I would not have been able to figure them out on my own. A few of them, I had to watch videos for it, but they were satisfying to accomplish, but had mechanics or interpretations of the Shine Spark ability that no mortal, other than if they were told by Nintendo with their review copies how to do these things. I mean, I'm sure someone figured it out, but they're not obvious. The fact that you can morph ball Shine Spark, and if you shine spark,
how do you do that?
If you shine spark into a slope, it resets it. Like, how would I know that? It's like you haven't gotten there. Sean, you'll never be able to do it. Don't worry about it. Don't let it keep you up at night.
I'm not worried.
So I thought that you were going to get the ability to speed boost into a ball, because there were some spots where obviously to get the item you needed to be just gonna get it in a ball to get across the like breakable floor or whatever it was. So how do you do that?
There's two versions, right? You get so some you have to like shine spark. When you press down on the analog stick, you become charged up with that red power or purple power, right? So as long as you go into morph ball from there and then press B in your direction, you'll shine spark in that. But you can also morph ball across falling blocks by using the second type of bomb you get. I can't remember what it's called.
Right.
The carpet
Cross bomb.
Oh, cross bomb, yeah. And then you can use that to shoot across smaller gaps where you can't use the shine spark.
That makes sense.
There's some good stuff with the hidden items. That's all I'll say. Anyway, I think we're tapped on general thoughts about the game. Should we give anyone? Are we good before I move on to star ratings and spoiler story stuff?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we also say our clear time?
Sure.
Frank, you remember yours?
I don't. I know by the time I got all the items, I was 14 hours, I think. I think I was 11.
Yeah, my clear time was 11 something.
And I did 8:04. But I also, when I got stuck, I was like, I'm pulling up a guide. I'm on too tight of a time crunch here to be.
I explored a lot of items. Like there was a lot of items I would find secrets and only find out, hey, I can't even get this yet. I'm glad I spent a ton of time for something I have no chance of getting. Again, another reason why Batman games are amazing. You can usually get everything in front of you. You just have to think creatively.
Yeah.
But that's Metroid, I guess. All right, Huck wins the clear time, but I win 100% battle. The true test of a real gamer is me. I am the victor. So let's get into star ratings. Mine's pretty easy for me. I think we do out of 5 stars, right? Like Film Junk?
I think so, yeah.
I am a solid 4 out of 5.
Solid 3.5 for me.
If I didn't do 100%, it would be a 3.5. 100%.
I think I'm gonna drop mine a bit after this conversation and go a 3 out of 5. And yeah, I'm confident.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like our conversation was mostly getting into the negative stuff, but I mean, ultimately, the middle of the game, you know it's working and you know it's kind of clicking with classic Metroid stuff when like 3 hours fly by, you're not thinking about it, you're just like moving from one section to the next and you're in it. So you kind of know when it's working and when it's not, I think.
All of that is just relying on why Metroid's great and why Metroid likes are great. There's so many like Metroid likes I've played in the past 10 years that do it way better. Or like
I think that's a factor too, for sure. Like for in terms of my star rating and like, you know, it is getting pretty solid reviews, but then I just think, well, like so many other Metroidvania games have raised the bar, and this is still kind of like back in 10 years ago, you know, like it's not really keeping up. So it's good and it's solid, and I love Metroid, but it, you know, as we said, all the new stuff is not adding anything.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Guacamelee is better, and it has lower review scores than this. So
really, even Guac, like both Guacs are better than this game.
Guac 2 was 87
Well, pretty
on Metacritic. Guacamelee 86, or I guess the Super Turbo Championship Edition. I'm not sure what the original one was. I don't know. Let me quick.
I think Guac does that exploration thing way better. Like each puzzle room is very clearly defined, and like it's like, okay, can I figure out when you get to a puzzle room in Guacamelee, it's like Batman. Oh, I think I can figure this out. Like it's hard, but I can do it, and I think it hits that sweet spot for discovery. So kudos to Drinkbox yet again. You've done it right. Cannot wait to play their new game. Everybody,
which is not Metroidvania.
Correct. Is it Everybody Saves the World?
Nobody Saves the World.
Oh, sorry, Nobody Saves the World. Yeah. Sorry, Graham. So let's get into story stuff. I don't have a lot to say other than I appreciate Nintendo cinematics. I typically appreciate the lack of story in Metroid games. If anything, there was too much story in this Metroid. But except for one cutscene where it explained the Chozo Beak or whatever, or Raven Beak, I'm like, this is way too long. Like, I'm falling asleep. Fuck. Other than that, they were short and sweet. And I thought the ones where it wasn't story, but the cinematics where it just introduced bosses were awesome. Like the boss reveals, Kraid, those looked fucking amazing.
Yeah, they were good. They were good.
But story-wise, you go, I don't even know what the story is. Don't care. Video game stories suck. Stand by that.
Well, I mean, it's funny because, you know, we talked, I think, a while back about how Halo, like, who knows the story of Halo? I mean, obviously, lots of people do, but, like, if you just kind of are casually playing these games, it becomes so convoluted so quickly. And I think Metroid is at that point now. Like, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, so, you know,
well, this game goes through great lengths at the beginning of the game to recap you on the stuff in Metroid. I'm like, what? I don't remember.
They're trying to pull in like
SAX. What the hell? I don't.
So there's like the storyline of like Metroid, Metroid 2, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion. So there's that they're trying to continue. but they're also pulling in the Metroid Prime stuff, which is, I guess, like a prequel to the original Metroid. I think those take place before the original Metroid, if I'm not mistaken. But I didn't even realize, like, so apparently there's some kind of manga out there, like Metroid official canon, that came out maybe when Fusion came out. I don't remember exactly, but or maybe it was Other M. I don't remember, but it's out there, and I've never read it. But apparently, it reveals that she like was born and brought up by the Chozo or something like that. Like, is that even in any of the games? I'm not sure if it is, but they're kind of continuing on with that in this, and I guess I don't know where to start, but like the big reveal is that the computer Adam seems to be either being manipulated or constructed by Ravenbeak.
So Ravenbeak is the bad guy. You land. So how I interpret it is you land on this planet. Now the first red flag was like you immediately meet Ravenbeak, and then Ravenbeak like magically sucks out all your power, and then you just are magically at the basement of this gigantic complex.
And spares you when it could kill you.
And spares
and
you.
And the computer keeps telling you, you can't possibly compete with this creature yet.
Yes. So I assumed that the computer you were talking to was your ship, which is why I assumed that Samus was like trusting it and going along with it. And then
and it is the same AI that's in Metroid Fusion, which I believe is based on like a commander that she had previously, which is that Other M that they talk about that. I don't know, but it's like that's convoluted too. But yeah, they're like this computer talking to you happened in Fusion, so you assume it's just the same thing, and then there's a reveal with that.
Yeah, so it's the Ravenbeak behind the whole thing, and he's the big bad. But
wasn't the big twist that Samus is a Metroid?
Oh, and that too.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Samus becomes, and Ravenbeak has directed you the whole time into becoming a Metroid by collecting these parasite X things on your body, I guess, right? Is that how you kind of, and I guess the Emmy life suck or whatever she does.
I don't really understand. Something to do with like, I think taking all your powers away and then forcing you to go through all this awakens the Metroid inside her or whatever. Which I will say I kind of like the Metroids.
The virus that only Metroids can stop, and she was always a Metroid. She
was immune or something.
Her ability to absorb the SAX like stopped the Metroid from consuming her. Or so or one or the other. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Stupid. You're a Metroid. Great. That's a nice little like one sentence twist that everyone. Samus is a Metroid. Oh my god, it's so cool. Is it?
Like,
is it
really cool? I think in previous games it was revealed that she had some kind of DNA or something. After something happened, it got stuck in her. But yeah, either way, she literally becomes a Metroid, and there's a Metroid suit, which I thought was kind of cool. But then the game kind of resets it at the end, and it seems like
because the ship takes it away. Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
if you power up the ship, it'll take your Metroid power. Like, does that make
sense?
Gotta
say, I was completely checked out at that point. I just love. I mean, Super Metroid does this well too. When you are escaping at the end, and you've got like the super powered gun. And you were that is so satisfying. That is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was surprised it wasn't at the beginning like they normally do. But
they usually bookend it to some degree. But
yeah.
I mean, how good is Super Metroid when like the screen's tilting? Oh, fuck, Super Metroid rocks.
Yes. I just had a lot of problems with like the ship is like, you got to get back to the ship or whatever, the AI. And then you like start getting closer and then you get one of the suits. And then you have to go all the way back down to the bottom, and it like leads you around.
You never get to the ship until it's.
Yeah, like what do you mean? Like I just go up. Why are you going back down? Just go up. But no, like it leads you down. I'm like, why are we doing this?
Well, if it wants you to succeed, or if it wants you to fail, I guess, why does it want you to go to your ship? Like, it shouldn't even tell you you can get to your ship.
No,
or
it wants you to. I think it wants you to become the Metroid. I think that was the plan because
Yeah, but it could do
guy
that.
wanted
You
to
would do
become
that
the
just
Metroid.
by exploring endlessly on this planet. Like, you don't need to get to the ship to do that.
Yeah, it was didn't totally make sense as to why you need to go to the ship and then why she leads you not, or why that guy leads you not to the ship. But
Yeah.
they did.
And I mean, like that's basically it. Like I feel like the story only kicks in like maybe halfway through, and it's just like a few cutscenes here and there. You know, boss fights and other stuff are really not tied into anything for the most part. And
Yeah.
yeah, I will say, like, just thinking about story in Metroid games, I think I like how the Metroid Prime games do it because there is a story there. You're kind of learning about this world and things that have happened and the history of the world, but it's not about Samus. Well, I guess ultimately they had to tie her in somehow, but like I would prefer just have her learning about this planet she's on and the inhabitants and stuff. I don't want to know anything about Samus. I don't care. Like the more you get into that stuff, it just sucks. Like
It's like Alien, less is more. It's all about atmosphere, mood, and
definitely.
like again, that's exploration. When you're told story elements, you're not discovering on your own. You're just like being fed information. So everything in Metroid Prime is about you scanning things, discovering elements and backstory of the world yourself. Like just breaking it down into cutscenes is in disservice of Metroid, in my opinion. So story is cutscenes are kind of cool. Nintendo's good at it, but the story is like, okay, we're at a point where, okay, I don't even, who cares anymore? It's like Halo. It's a perfect analogy, Sean. It's like, okay, a bunch of shit happens in Halo. Halo heads and Metroid heads are probably losing their shit. But anyone else who just likes those games is like, okay, what am I doing? Let me watch that stupid 5-minute recap video and not care and be like, okay, brutal.
So I wanted to bring up the final boss when you fight Ravenbeak to finish off the game, and then he has three forms. One where he's in this like suit of armor with a cape. Then you like dissolve his cape and he creates wings and he starts flying around. And then you destroy his wings and then he comes back down and you just beat him there. But one thing we didn't mention actually is when you're in the cinematics, I like that you still have some control and can fire your weapon and do damage that way. It feels like you're still in control as it's showing you this cool thing. And I appreciate that when they let you fire your gun, they don't all of a sudden like throw in a random dodge. It seems like they kind of kept those separate. Like if you're going to need to dodge, you cannot shoot. So you should know like a dodge is coming up or possibly coming up.
I don't know. I think in the first two phases of the final boss, you have to shoot missiles during the cinematic portion.
Yeah.
And then one of them, isn't there a parry flash right after?
I think the first phase you have to parry.
Yeah, but I don't think you can shoot missiles before you do the flash.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Either.
But I was a little confused by him because he has this suit and he has different glowing patterns around him. And it seemed like they were trying to match a certain weapon. So I was like, okay, he's kind of purpley. I'll shoot my shooter weapon gun, my main phaser weapon or whatever you call it. And then he kind of turned orange. So I was like, okay, does that mean I need to now use like a power ball to do damage against him? That didn't seem to do anything. And then he kind of turned red. I'm like, okay, is this my ice missiles now that I can't use my regular missiles? I only have the ice missiles. And it seemed like all of them did the same. It seemed like that color meant nothing.
Yeah, you just have to parry. Red, you have to parry. Red is invincible. And I agree that the color language like is not taught anywhere in the game. It's not like, oh, I know what these colors mean when enemies have this stuff around them.
Okay, so red was that he was going to do that charge attack?
No, red was just as soon as he goes red, you cannot attack him no matter what. You can only do damage after you parry. No, he's permanently red. It's not a tell for an attack. He's invincible. You can only do damage when it's a flash and you parry and then do the missiles in the cutscene type stuff that Huck was talking about.
Oh, I think I was able to get him out of that through some method.
No.
Like when he did the little beam thing.
If he shoots a beam,
Yeah.
if he shoots a beam, there's like the sideways beam that's like a huge Hadoken that takes up the whole screen. You
Yeah.
can duck under that, and he always does a parry after that.
Yes.
But when he's red, he has to be parried. No other attack will
Oh,
suffice.
okay. Huh. Maybe I just waited for that.
Stand by
beam.
that statement.
Could have just waited for the beam then. Interesting. Anyways, I just found it very difficult to understand what those colors meant. I was really surprised that they seem to lean on the colors so much because they don't really explain it. Like, and then it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, where you are trying to learn what does damage, and like you can't really tell. You can't really tell at all.
And it's not like other Nintendo games. Like this is where Nintendo, again, design has fallen apart. I think in Breath of the Wild and this game. Bosses in Nintendo games, Metroid might be the exception, but you have ways of regaining health while you're learning how to defeat the boss. It's not keep trying and die, start over, go up the elevator again. It's like, okay, you're going to fail while you're learning to do this boss. And this game does not have that. You fail and then you try again and you fail. Like in every other Nintendo game, unless you're horrible at it, you can succeed and figure it out while it's happening. This one, it's like the health you gets taken off is enormous. If you don't know exactly what to do, you are going to fail. And there's no element of discovery within the boss fight.
Yeah, I guess we haven't totally touched on just difficulty level overall. And I feel like there has been a lot of talk that this is a more difficult Metroid game. I don't know. Like, I feel like...
I think it's difficulty out of clumsiness. Like, if you actually knew how to do everything, like if I went and played this game again, it's not hard. Like, I know how to do everything now. It just doesn't teach mechanics and ideas that well compared to other Nintendo games.
Yeah, but I do feel like early in the game, there are a lot of enemies that can just wipe you out, like as you're just exploring. And I do think the boss fights are a little more unforgiving than previous Metroid games. Like, you know, it reminded me a lot of Hollow Knight, where I felt like I'm trying to just memorize patterns. Once I got the pattern down, fine. But you have to be very precise, and there's not a lot of room for error.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Kraid and Ridley being pretty hard in Super Metroid, but there's a save room. There's a save room right beside it, and you.
But one of my other big problems with the end boss is like literally the cutscene ends, and he like attacks you right away. Like if you are not immediately jumping, you're nailed.
No, you have to parry that. That's why that's a reveal of a flaw reveal. The reason why that boss always starts with a parryable attack is so that you recognize when it does that red dash, you parry, and because it makes you do that. It's like, well, we need the player to do this, so we better, as many times as they're going to keep trying this boss, teach the player, okay, this is what the parry attack looks like, and you have to be looking for that at all times.
Oh, I never even saw that. I never even saw that on the first like.
Oh, really?
Intro.
Yeah,
I never even parried that one time. I always jumped out of the way.
Oh, maybe you're right. You know what? I'm complete. I apologize. I think
it was like some sort of blue slashing thing that I was seeing. I didn't see the little like gold flash to say you could parry it, but
maybe it's the second phase that starts with a parryable thing all the time. I remember having this thought though, so it's somewhere there. Sorry, Hawk.
Well, that's all. I just had some problems with them because I just didn't understand really like what I didn't understand the language it was trying to speak to me at all, and it was just a little frustrating. So that's all I wanted to bring up, just because it's the final boss, and then I guess we could talk about like the final boss, the big worm thing or whatever that is.
I love that. That
I thought
felt
there was
like
gonna be more to it. Actually, it just kind of like was blasted in the face with really no skill. You basically
that's why I liked it. It reminded me of old school video games where like the bosses were these huge spectacle moments, and it's like, think of how much effort and art went into making that model for that creature, and it's literally like you said, 30 seconds.
Not
but
even
it's
30
more,
seconds.
it's more about it being memorable, and it's not about a gameplay challenge. It's just like when games, and especially Nintendo games, used to end with like very memorable bosses. And I thought that was a great throwback, especially when you think about games like Control, Game of the Year, where the end boss isn't even a boss. It's like 3 like waves of enemies that are like, games do not do end bosses well at all. Nintendo's always been great at it, and this is no exception. Memorable bosses, not easy to do.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a satisfying end, you know?
Yeah.
Just feels good.
That's all for me.
I think we've done it. We've said it all. What else could you possibly say about Metroid Dread? We've covered every angle, criticized it, I would think, about as studiously as 3 people can. So thanks for listening. I love Game Junk reviews. I hope there's some more short games that we can all play. I think we get into the fine details of a game like Metroid Dread. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with who knows what. Is there anything going on? Any new games?
Don't know. Did anyone try Back 4 Blood?
We tried it a bit, but I need to play some more.
Yeah,
People who know how to play games, but it's all right.
It's a little teaser. A little teaser for you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.